wanted to use really sure.
This is Nat Nasworth with the Christian Post. I'm here at the Faith and Freedom Coalition's Road to Majority Conference with Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel. Did I get that right?
Liberty Counsel Action. Yes.
Liberty Counsel Action. Okay, and he was just talking on a panel about the legal do's and don'ts for churches with regard to political action. For those who missed it, what's the answer? What can churches do with regard to political activity?
Well, as we discussed in the panel discussion, I asked a question: how many churches in the United States have lost their tax exemption for political activity from the pulpit or anywhere in the church? And the answer, of course, is zero. The Johnson Amendment was passed in 1954. It was a retaliatory act. Lyndon Baines Johnson was tired of some churches and some nonprofit organizations had gone after him when he was running for the Senate. So the Johnson Amendment was passed to try to rein in churches and keep pastors from speaking from the pulpit, particularly from endorsing candidates from the pulpit. Up until that point, that had never been a problem, and it's really not a problem still today. The Johnson Amendment is overtly unconstitutional. Thousands of pastors have now overtly endorsed candidates from the pulpit to try to get the Johnson Amendment into the court system, to get the IRS to take punitive action against pastors for endorsing candidates, but they won't do it because it's toothless, and the IRS doesn't want it going to court. They would prefer to have the specter, the threat, hanging over a pastor's head that, oh, you might lose your tax exemption. But the crux of what we walked away with today is that churches don't need a letter of tax exemption. It's superfluous. It's extraneous. They don't need it because churches are inherently tax exempt by virtue of being born, of becoming a church. They are tax exempt, as Dr. Richard Lee put it on the panel today. He said that churches are tax immune. So it's really a misnomer to say that they're tax exempt. They're tax immune. There's really no mechanism in place to take away a church's tax exempt status. That's why, even though now thousands of pastors through ADF's pulpit initiative have overtly endorsed candidates from the pulpit, that's why the IRS will not go after them. They don't want it going to court so that they lose that kind of toothless threat that they have to keep churches and pastors in particular quiet.
Now, one of the big issues today, of course, is same-sex marriage. Do you think there'll be efforts in the future to go after churches who do not support redefining marriage to include same-sex couples? And what might that look like if it does happen? Sure.
I believe that day will come where the government, particularly under this administration, unfortunately, and I know there will be there could be like-minded administrations in the future. We've seen coming out of Denmark, for instance, now a law that requires that churches host so-called same-sex weddings, despite the fact that they are overtly and unambiguously counter-biblical. Homosexual behavior, of course, is a sin, clearly in both the Old and New Testament, and same-sex marriage is just a wicked counterfeit. But nonetheless, churches in Denmark are now being forced to host so-called same-sex weddings. I believe that unless pastors stand up, like many are doing, and getting involved in so-called political issues, which they're not. We're talking about transcendent spiritual and moral issues here that the secular left has co-opted and labeled political. The moral issues fall under the purview of the church. So pastors need to get involved, need to rise up today, or that day will come where a tyrannical government, it could happen right here in the U.S., tries to force pastors to perform so-called same-sex weddings. They're already doing it with Christian bakers and florists and photographers and certainly innkeepers, and telling them, no, you have to leave your conscience, leave your Christian faith at the workplace door. If you're going to own and operate a business and be engaged in commerce in the United States, you have to adopt the postmodern secularist view of sexual morality and leave the Judeo-Christian view of sexual morality at home. That is clearly unconstitutional, a violation of the First Amendment. So when the Constitution doesn't matter there, I don't know what makes us think it's going to matter when it comes to churches.
And from a legal standpoint, are faith-based groups that are not churches, schools, colleges, things like that, are they more at risk? Are they easier targets in a legal sense?
Absolutely. Faith-based universities, the power of the purse can be wielded mightily. There are a number of Christian universities around the country that have students that are paying for their college through Pell Grants, through guaranteed student loans, and other means. And the government can say, hey, look, we're going to disallow you from having any involvement whatsoever, any government funding, or any students that receive government funding from attending your university. That's one very effective way. We also know that homosexual activists are going to be pushing this, testing the waters, and so I think Christian universities, Christian organizations, once the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, for instance, has passed, or some other, as President Obama has done now, unilaterally passing through edict, executive fiat, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act as it pertains to the government's involvement with any federal contractors, any federal contracts. Organizations are told if you have $10,000 or more in federal contracts, you have to treat sexual behaviors, LGBT behaviors, as if they were somehow neutral qualities like skin color and so forth, for purposes of involvement with the government and government contracts. So they're already, again, wielding the power of the purse in order to try to force their will on the church. And the church is much more than just a building that where we have sermons every Sunday. The church is the body of Christ. Christians collectively are under assault in this country at unprecedented levels.
Okay, and so given your concerns, quickly, what is your advice to churches?
My advice to churches is to follow the lead of Christ, to speak truth in love, fearlessly, to be undaunted by the threat of government intervention or punitive action from the government, because that's what we're commanded to do. As Christians, we're told that they're going to hate us because they first hated Him, they first hated Christ, and in a culture that loves darkness, when you're obeying Christ and you're being salt and light, light can be blinding to those whose eyes have become adjusted to darkness, and salt, though it has certainly a preservative effect to it, salt can burn in an open wound, and our culture right now is an open wound. So we're going to have a visceral response from the government, from individual leftist organizations for speaking truth and standing firm. But my encouragement to people is to always err on the side of truth, always speak truth in love, and to do it boldly and unapologetically.
Matt Barber, thank you for speaking to us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thanks for watching The Christian Post.